like to do a Peter
Yeah, so
Boghossian
privately.
impression. Let's see if I can
Okay.
pull this off.
Ooh.
All right, everybody. New claim. Does land acknowledgements psychologically harm children? Don't move yet. Don't move yet. All right. And go. To start off, I want to play the part of someone who has no idea what's going on. And in a sense, that's not entirely not the case. Like, I'm not from Canada. I don't know what's going on up north, you know? Uh, but, like, let's start real basic. Like, a land acknowledgement. What is a land acknowledgement?
So if I were to do a land acknowledgement, to the best of my ability from what I've seen, for like right now, I'm in Alberta. So I would say I'm on the Treaty 7 territory, which, for context, that would be the treaty that was signed, that ceded the land to the Crown, essentially, and then put the Indigenous people on reserves. And part of those treaties, there was a whole bunch of other things. But you don't get into that. So the land acknowledgement, you say, we're on Treaty 7 territory, which is the land traditionally of the Tsuut'ina, the Kainai, the Piikani, the Blackfoot, and the Cree. And you list off all of these names. I probably missed some there. And then some people add other things to it. But from my experience, that's basically the most basic land acknowledgement. You list your treaty. If you have a treaty, there's other parts in Canada that are considered unceded that don't have treaties. So they would say we're on the unceded territory. Some people will say, things like, involve settlers or words like colonialists or other things, but I haven't seen that in my own personal experience yet.
Okay.
That's just what I've heard from hearsay.
Gotcha. Okay, I think I understand what a land acknowledgement is now. So it's just a statement that is said, and it's you provide like the treaty if there is one, and then you disclose, I guess, who the land belongs to. Is it current tense? Is it present tense in the statement of the land acknowledgement?
It's past and present tense. So it has this kind of tone of like it being stolen. Like you never declare that you're on the land of the city of Calgary, operated by the municipality and, name the current mayor. It's specifically to talk about the ethno groups in the area, and they're ethno-cultural groups. They're also political groups, ethno-political groups, I suppose. Because you can be adopted into a band as well without genetically being part of that band, if that makes sense. It's a status to be a part of a band. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, great. All right, in regards to these land acknowledgements, what are your thoughts on them? What is your stance? What do you think?
I completely oppose land acknowledgements.
Okay.
Like
oppose.
Flat out, I don't participate. I will sometimes boo. Like I went to Cirque du Soleil and I booed and heckled the land acknowledgement. Other times I'll just face palm. Like if it comes up on me and I can't get out and it's something, when kids are being used as political pawns, that's when I'm particularly opposed to it, is when it's involving kids who have to come up and state this land acknowledgement. And I have many reasons for why I'm opposed to it, but I'm on the strongly disagree that there should be land acknowledgements prior to events.
Disagree that, I want to make sure that I'm clear on this. You disagree that there should be land acknowledgements before events. Is this like are you advocating for a ban, or are you advocating for like you can choose to do it but you probably shouldn't?
Right. Yes. I don't want to control other people's speech. I don't want to censor other people. If other people want to do land acknowledgements, go to town. But I'm going to use my free speech to tell you that I think that's not a good idea, and then explain why.
Okay. Okay. So kind of your stance would be they're not a good idea. Not necessarily that you are like, no, like you can't do it. It's just like, I think it's a bad idea. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess let's dig into that. Why is that the case?
Multiple reasons. So, for one, it undermines private property. If you continually say that someone else owns the land, you're going to have to probably cash that check at some point in time. So we've seen that in British Columbia. There's a whole bunch of upset about private property. People are not renewing, banks aren't renewing mortgages, or not. There's all sorts of things going on where the Cowichan tribe, the Cowichan area, for example, people's property has just plummeted because it's been given over to the Cowichan band. And so in that case, once the land is given up, Richmond as well, things are chaotic there. You will be paying taxes or rent to people that you can't hold accountable through the democratic process. So it creates this possibility that there could be issues there in regards to money, land, and property rights. So there's that issue. And then there is the issue of division. I think that it creates division. I think it creates more animosity between two groups of people based on race. I think they're racist. I think it could actually lead, my biggest fear is that it could lead to what's currently happening in South Africa. It's like neo-apartheid. And so it creates, in both ways, it just creates anger and possibly even down the road violence. You know, I was driving down the road in my neighborhood and there was a big spray painted graffiti that said stolen land. So if you continually tell people that the land is stolen, well, how do you get it back? And if no one's going to help you get it back, what are you going to decide that you're entitled to do? And especially if you have populations where there's fetal alcohol syndrome rates of up to 40%. I don't know if you've ever worked with kids who have fetal alcohol syndrome or dealt with adults, but they don't have control over their impulses, so they can become very dangerous people. Sometimes, not always, you know, if they get help and that sort of thing, but often there is no help.
Are we going on a
Or
tangent
proper
here?
help.
I'm not making the connection.
So I'm worried that if we continually say land acknowledgements and create this division, that eventually it could boil over into actual violence.
Gotcha.
By primarily against Europeans, or there could be back and forth. I'm not sure. But if you are told that Europeans stole the land and you are indigenous and you live in poverty on the reserve in horrible conditions, and there's 40% possibility that someone has fetal alcohol syndrome, either you or someone in your family that you're raised by, creates like a situation that I think could lead to possible violence down the road. I think it's a dangerous situation.
Okay.
If that didn't exist, if that tangent didn't exist at all, even if we never got to violence, which I would never want to see, I completely oppose all violence. Just creating division and animosity among settler colonialist descendants who are European and indigenous people, creating that division as opposed to trying to figure out unity and looking at history in a multifaceted way, where people can ask questions and go back and forth, as opposed to just trying to teach these little settled history lessons at the beginning of each event that I think causes more animosity between groups. And I want less animosity. I want more unity, more working together, more community building. less racism.
Okay. Okay, I think I got you. So we've got these two separate and distinct reasons. And one reason I heard was it's something in relating to properties and what municipality kind of like controls it or taxes it, something in relation to that. I'm not sure I completely understood all the details. I'm not sure I need to, but relating to that. And then the other reason was division, animosity, potentially even escalating to violence. So we have these very distinct reasons. Is there one that is more important for your uh, dislike of land acknowledgements than the other?
Well, I think it's kind of like the snake eating the tail of itself. They would lead to each other, right? If you threaten people's private property, that's going to create animosity.
Okay.
If you right, so like either way, like they're so overlapping that I
Mhm.
don't know if I could choose one or the other.
I see.
They're just
Let,
the two sides of the same coin.
let me throw out a hypothetical. And this hypothetical might not correlate with reality at all, but if you could humor me here. Let's say we have land acknowledgements, and I could guarantee you, which I actually can't, but in this hypothetical I'm going to, I guarantee you that property will never exchange hands in sense of like government. It will never be transferred to another different kind of government. Land will never be private property will never be forcibly taken away, or at least 99% of the time. That will never happen. That will be the guarantee for this hypothetical. If that is the case, I guess, does your dislike for land acknowledgements change at all, or does it stay the same?
Um, it stays the same. I mean, maybe I could move over to the just disagree
Okay.
instead of strongly disagree. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. If I told you that this would eventually lead to property exchanging, Canadian government might transfer all their property and everybody's private property into control of a different government, like a tribe's government or something. If I told you, yep, that's definitely going to happen, guarantee you that's going to happen, but I would say there's not going to be any animosity. I know it sounds crazy. Like in real world, you probably would see that. Absolutely. But in this hypothetical, the animosity, racism, just no, everybody gets along. It's a happy storybook ending. Where are you on that scale then?
I would still be strongly disagree because it would be an infringement of freedom because these new governments don't operate democratically, right? So if they want to remove your freedom of speech, you're now underneath their power and control. So if they want to say, hey, you're not allowed to question anything about the official history that we're saying is the history of the land, whatever it may be. You're not
Okay.
allowed to question residential school, what we say about them, the narrative, or anything, or else you go to jail and your property is seized, which is currently what's being proposed.
Okay, let
um,
me tweak the
then
hypothetical. Let's say they
okay.
allow freedom of speech, and really they're not any laws are really going to be changed. It'll basically be the same as it is right now.
That's really hard to imagine
It is. It's a crazy
because,
hypothetical.
yeah, because for one example, there's already been laws that have changed in the Cowichan area. So just because it's already happened, it's hard to imagine it without. One of the things that changed was that they regressed into sort of old tribal laws, which don't involve due process. So instead of everyone being innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, they ran a family out of town that they said were involved with drug dealing, and I believe their house got burnt to the ground.
Hmm.
So
The-
if you don't have proper rule of law and courts and that sort of thing, like they say that that's all colonial. That's all colonial. So if you were to transfer the government, it would be a completely new government. It wouldn't be the same. You'd be ruled under something that you can't recognize right now?
I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because I think this might not be super. This specific example might not be super relevant, but I'm just wondering, like, ran out of town. Their house was burnt to the ground. Not doubting that that happened. I'm sure it happened. But like,
Fact check me on
you
that. I'm
said,
not totally sure on it.
okay. I'll grant it. Let's assume it. Um, like you said that there was like a new law. Like, was it the government running them out of town and burning their house down, or was it other
Yeah, I
citizens?
believe it had something to do with yeah, like the tribal council isn't going to hold anyone to account. No one's going to jail for that. I don't know if the
Oh, okay.
tribal council condoned it or supported it or or members were involved with it directly or indirectly or what. It just was allowed to happen. It was like
Hmm.
if you have a mob that decides that you need to be run out of town and your house burnt down to the ground, that's the old way of government,
Okay, so it wasn't
right? That's
necessarily something
that's
that's on the
without,
books.
without our right. There is nothing on the books. They were a pre-literate society. If you're actually going to decolonize, you have to go back to what it was like before colonization as much as possible. Right? So these all of our institutions and stuff that you see as government, that's not the same government that you're going to be under. It's going to be dissolved.
Hmm. Okay.
Arguably, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Uh, so there's a lot of things standing out to me here. I think I want to take it back to a little bit more basic. So we kind of talked about these two distinct things, and then we kind of talked, and maybe they're not so distinct. But when I was listening to you earlier, it sounded like there's the laws and what might happen with that, and what freedoms you may or may not have as a result. And then we have the animosity, which might lead to racism, violence. To me, when we were talking, it sounded like you would change your confidence a lot more if the animosity, potential for violence was removed. Like you would shift a little bit more. So it sounds like that part of it, regardless of whether they're uh, linked and you can't unlink those things. It sounds like that part, anyways, is more important. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean anything that lessens human suffering without impeding on people's rights, right? So you could it has to be like objectively avoiding unnecessary suffering, like war or violence, right?
Okay.
Then yeah.
Okay. How do we avoid the animosity and the potential for further violence? What's the strategy?
Well, I like what Charlie Kirk said, where he said, if you have to keep people talking. I forget in the Enlightenment, someone said, if people can't fight with the pen, they'll fight with the sword. So it would be to promote more and more discussion. And I don't know if you've studied, I'm sure you've studied like leadership theory and feedback and stuff like that. And they'll talk about how when you're giving feedback, you can't do a hit and run. Like it's not like, hey, Pierce, I'm just going to tell you what I think about you right now. And now I'm going to turn off my phone and I don't want to hear anything back. And it's just like, you're not even like ready for it. That's a hit and run. The land acknowledgements are kind of like, here's our history and we can't talk about it. Here's the event. It's not, it's like, this is what it is. Don't argue with it. As opposed to, I want to learn, I love history and I love Indigenous history. When I was I want to know all of the nuance about it. When I was a sea kayak guide uh, up in Alert Bay area, the hereditary chief son of the Namgis people, I learned a lot from him. He gave me the name Nula, which means little sister, in a ceremony. He surprised me with a ceremony. And he told me that they used to have slaves. I did more research, and maybe slave isn't the best word. They might have had like a caste system when they imprisoned other tribes after war, other members of other tribes, and they might not have been full-on slaves. But there's so much nuance to the history, and there's so much, like this book, I highly recommend this book, A History of Canada in 10 Maps. It's actually really engaging. It's really fun, and there's maps inside of it, like pictures of old Viking maps and like other interesting maps. And Adam Schultz is a great author. He's really interesting. So there's stories in there of movement of Indigenous people, and sometimes there was old feuds where one group would come across another and they'd be sleeping, and this is documented by Sir Alexander Mackenzie or whatever, all these old explorers. I'm not the best with all the names. One tribe will see another tribe sleeping and just go and massacre them, right? Documented that these things happen before the explorers can even be like, hey, cool it. There's the Beaver Wars. There's been genocides of other Indigenous people. So if we want to go into land acknowledgements, do we have to try and go back all the way through how many other people have lived there beforehand? If they were enslaving other people in the area? There's all sorts of stuff going on.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And so it's I think it's a disservice. It's like,
This is interesting.
Yeah.
So you gave the two different reasons that we've been talking about this whole time. Is this a third reason?
Yeah, I probably have more too. I have so many reasons why I don't like these things.
I'm wondering. So
unnuanced.
typically when I ask someone and they give like one or two reasons, and then they give the third reason, typically the third reason is the biggest reason. And I'm not saying that's the case with you. I'm actually suspecting the opposite. I'm suspecting that this reason is a justification and something that you don't really feel is actually important, but you use it just to make yourself sound like yeah, this is a really good reason. Other people will really make it sound like it will convince other people.
I don't know. I think maybe it might be the biggest reason.
Really? Okay.
Because when I think about it, it's indoctrination, not education.
Okay. Help me understand that. So we got land acknowledgements, and it's acknowledging some land, maybe the most recent people who were in control of the land before Canada, maybe before the settlers. But that's kind of misinformation, because there might have been other land controllers before that were different before that more second most recent one.
Well, okay, so without getting into the history, right, which I love to do, you can't do that with a land acknowledgement. That's why it's indoctrination and not education. It doesn't promote critical thinking. It doesn't promote discussion. It's a statement that you're supposed to just accept, like over and over and over again, just drilled into you. But yeah, if you want to get into the history of it, for example, there's a wonderful professor named Elizabeth Weiss. And Elizabeth Weiss wrote a book called On the Warpath. And she talks about how there's massive collections of skeletons of the original peoples being reburied and destroyed, collections being destroyed, they're being locked away in archives, not allowed anyone to study them. And we have new sequencing genetic studies now. And when they do genetic studies, often people who are claiming to be the people in the area are genetically not related to the skeletons there. So there's all sorts of like, people have always been on the move. People have always been interbreeding and intermarrying. There's so much admixture. I just want to actually look at the human story with as much information and evidence as possible. I don't want to destroy any science. There's a case in Kamloops where, if you look, Castanet, they reported that they found ancient human remains outside of the reserve. So ancient skeletons were allegedly found, and the band has currently coordinated this land off. No scientists are allowed to study these actual skeletons, like actual human remains that they found. And so if you stop science, like what if those skeletons aren't genetically related to the band that's claiming the land there? That doesn't mean that they're not necessarily the people that had it last, but there might have been people beforehand. Or maybe
Mhm.
they are, maybe it shows the movement of people. Maybe we find out really exciting things. Like I always thought the people of Hawaii looked a lot like the people, like the Namgis people. Maybe there was actually boat travel all the way through Polynesia. Maybe there's people that came up from the south and from the north. Maybe the Clovis theory is real. Maybe they have some European DNA from before the Ice Age. Not my ancestors, but right, uh, other Europeans that came over and reproduced here. There's Vikings that have come over. There's so much. There's so much. And it's asinine to boil it down into these forced statements
Hmm.
before events. It's
You know,
nutty.
I think I feel the same way about the Pledge of Allegiance as you do about Pledge of Allegiance for the United States, as you do about land acknowledgements. Like the Pledge of Allegiance is a statement that like you will pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It's kind of like I don't know. It's kind of like you're just like I will obey. Like I will obey the government is kind of what it's saying, and implying that that God exists. But what, anyways, like I don't know. I think it might be a similar feeling anyway. It's like it's kind of meaningless. Like if you make kids stand at the beginning of the school day, say it. Does that actually mean anything? Does that teach them anything? It might be indoctrination. It might be like instill a sense of patriotism, I suppose. But aside from that, it doesn't really do much else. I guess is that your? Sounds like that's kind of your gripe. Like the land acknowledgement is a statement, but it's only a statement. It's nothing really behind that. It's not an entire history lesson. It's not anything. There's no argument to back up what is being said in the land acknowledgement. It's just a statement that exists in time.
And I understand, you know, it's like this compelled speech sort of thing with your what is it called again? What do you
Pledge
guys
of
do?
Allegiance.
Pledge of Allegiance, but it's liberty and justice for all.
That is true.
Okay, which I'd rather say that. That's fantastic. It makes my heart swell with warmth when I hear it. So maybe as an outsider, you know, I think you got a good thing going on there. But yeah, the force, just like the mechanical having to say it, you need to have some dissent and some discussion. I think that's important. Maybe you and I were both the kids that when we had the floppy disks and they told us not to put our fingers in the middle, when no one was looking, we had to put our fingers in the middle of the floppy disk. Um, but when it comes to land acknowledgements, it's about two different people. It's not we're united. It's not a message of unity. And
I
that's
see.
scary. It makes me sick.
I got a real reason test here. If the land acknowledgement included the terms with liberty and justice for all at the end, how would you feel about it then?
I would say it's a contradicting statement.
Hmm. Okay. Hmm. How do you not make it a contradicting statement? If you were to like instead of it being a land acknowledgement, how do I even phrase this? Like if you were to say like this tribe originally controlled this area of land, and then at an insert date, Canada started controlling this land with liberty and justice for all. Would you be okay with that?
No, because even then it's not nuanced enough. Like it's not if you're going to bring in the history,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can't have it like with the Pledge of Allegiance, you're pledging allegiance to a flag.
Yeah.
Right. And the United States for which it stands or whatever. It's like this symbol, and it's something that everybody's doing. It would kind of be, I guess in Canada, we pledge allegiance to the Queen and now King Charles III. We have a little pledge that we do.
That's gross.
Um,
That's worse than the flag. Anyways, continue
is
on.
it? Oh man, we should get into
Yeah,
that. That
that's
should be a
much
different one.
worse.
I'll play the loyalist. I'll be the loyalist just for fun.
Okay, so so you're saying that if you give history, got the history, got the liberty and justice for all at the end, even throwing in Canada for current day, what I guess I'm failing to see the the issue.
I'd
Fill me
prefer
in.
to just not have. Yeah, so I'd prefer to just not have any political statements at the beginning of the performance.
Is
I
it
don't want
political?
to. Totally, it's totally political. It has political
Hmm.
implications. It's ethno-political, right? Um, it's. I mean, history often is inherently political, but to make this very reductive statement and then use children or using children as political pawns, the audience is forced to participate. If I stood up at the front of the of an event and I said, I'm an Alberta separatist and we're on the land of the future state of Alberta, or whatever, like whatever your agenda is, just just say, hey, the kids
Hmm.
are going to be singing in the choir. I hope everyone has a great time. Or like, you're at the musical theater event and here's the name of the event and thank you for coming, and move on. We don't need to know about what you think about the history of Canada. We don't
Hmm.
care. Has nothing to do with what we're about to do. I'm going to a hockey game. I just want to see them play hockey. I don't need you to say we're on this land or the traditional land or blah, blah, blah. I don't care. Just want to play
Hmm.
hockey. That's it. I just want to see some dudes beat each other up after a good body check. That's all I want to see. That's all I care about.
Hmm. I'm wondering. I, I'm not going to dismiss any of your other reasons, right? I think they hold importance. Is this the one that's the most important? Really, it's just like you find that it's irrelevant to whatever event might be going on, a distraction.
Yeah, it's a virtue signal too. It's this like self-flagellation. It's like, oh, I'm such a bad settler.
Hmm.
I hope you feel better that I said this now.
I see. I see. Yeah, I think if the United States was to do something like that, like in my area, if I was go to an event and this would happen, here's what I would think. At first, upon the first time, I'd be like, "That was really strange. I've never seen that before." That'd probably be my initial reaction. After like the second or third time, I probably would be like, "Huh, that's still kind of strange." But I would probably be like, "I really don't care. I just don't give a damn." I mean, I don't know. I guess
Are you dead inside, Pierce?
yeah, I guess like if they want to say that, okay, that's wonderful. Like, okay, knock yourself out.
Yeah, I mean, they want to do that. Sure, absolutely, they can do that. But I think that even in Calgary, there's mandates. Like if Cirque du Soleil comes in or something like that, I think that there
Mhm.
are mandates for compelled speech. I'm not sure. I just have this as a feeling. I haven't actually looked into it yet, but just from what I've seen. Um, and then in regards to like children's events, like I said, it's using children as political pawns. So if you want to like, you know, host your orphan, adult, childless turkey dinner, and before you cut the turkey in your own home on your private property, say your land acknowledgement. Or if you're renting a community hall and you want to host a dinner and whoever shows up, you want to say a land acknowledgement, fine. But I am going to use my speech instead of censorship, right? If you don't like speech, the answer is not censorship, it's more speech. I'm going to use my free speech to badger you about it. If you
Hmm.
make an announcement before
I
my
think there might
kids' choir,
be a contradiction in strategy here. No, like you said, you wanted unity, and I'm on board with you. Totally on board with you. And I don't know, would badgering someone about something be a way to disrupt unity instead of create it?
oh yeah, it can for sure, but it's explaining to these mostly other white women that you are creating divides. You know, if you have one little Indigenous boy in the choir and you have all these white kids, and all of a sudden you're making them racially aware every time they want to perform, and you're creating this historical context, and they don't understand, like teaching history to children, you have to make broad strokes and then you add more and more and more layers and nuance, right? But it's just inappropriate to do it. And so you're actually creating harm for the children, psychological harm. Leave them alone, let them just be
Hmm.
happy being kids, singing in a choir, and enjoy the music. Like, you don't have to make this about some sort of history of hardship or wrongdoing. Just leave them alone. Right? Like it's you're not helping anyone
I like to do
at
my
all. And so
like to do a
yeah,
Peter
so
Boghossian
privately,
impression. Let's see if I can
okay.
pull this off.
Ooh.
All right, everybody. New claim. Does land acknowledgements uh, psychologically harm children? Don't move yet. Don't move yet. All right. And go. Okay, what man are you going to?
I'm gonna go to slightly agree because
Okay,
I haven't
slightly
fully
agree.
explored. I haven't really fully explored that one yet.
All right, who do we got over here? Okay, we got Dan. We got Dan, and he's on slightly disagree. Okay. Dan, why don't you write down the reason why you are on slightly disagree? Okay, got that? Okay. And why am Kathy? Wow, I forgot your name for a second. Kathy, you are on slightly agree. Can you guess the reason why Dan is on slightly disagree?
Because he thinks that it's educational and education is always a positive thing for children.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Let's see. All right, he says you're kind of close, kind of, sort of close. Um, is there another reason? Is there another guess you want to take?
It makes children more aware of historically marginalized groups and peoples, and therefore it will make them behave in a more inclusive manner moving
Okay.
forward.
Okay, it says that not quite it. Okay, now Dan's gonna try to guess what yours is, and oh, okay, Dan. Oh, okay. He said that you um. Wow, this is hard to do. Um,
Take your time.
he said that having these land acknowledgements is constantly throwing race into the front of their minds, constantly talking about race, and having that all the time, right in the forefront, is something that ultimately will cause them to. I don't know. I am I on the right
Close.
track here?
I would add in that it instills potentially guilt in one group and animosity or resentment in another group.
Okay. 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 I think Dan understands that. Okay. Now, no, Dan. Can you tell Kathy why you are on slightly disagree? Okay. Okay. He says that he doesn't think that the He doesn't think that the land acknowledgement might necessarily cause them to constantly be thinking about race. He thinks that they'll probably just go through the motions, and eventually it's just going to be something that they say and do and don't really think about, and it's just something that it's like, oh, I got to do this now. Yeah, can't believe they're making us do this again. And it's just like, whatever. I'm not going to take this seriously. Kids don't take anything seriously nowadays, anyways. So
So
that,
then
that
what would be the point if there's no impact? Anyways, then why could we just not do it then?
yeah. Dan was like, yeah, he thinks this is silly, anyways. He's not a supporter of the land acknowledgements, but he also doesn't think it's going to cause psychological harm.
Yeah, and I can see that aspect, but I think that the potential is there. If there will be some kids who do think about it. There will be some kids who do think about it, and I don't know what their parents also teach them at home if they reinforce it. So, it's really coming to a head right now. So, for example, do you know Chanel Fowl on X?
No clue.
So she's a school teacher, and people send her pictures of what's going on in their schools. And this one recently went viral, and all sorts of people are quote posting it. And there's a picture of these kids from their winter concert, and they have picket signs that says "stolen land," and they blurred out the kids' faces, but there's a whole crowd of kids. So it's kind of like it's that slippery slope thing as well. It's like, okay, yeah, no, it doesn't matter. We'll let them do this. They can have their land acknowledgements before the events, and I don't care. I'll just keep my head down, whatever. I'm not going to think about it. I'm not going to think too deeply about it. Doesn't matter. And then it just keeps like, okay, well, now they're doing this. Now they're doing this. And now they're doing forced conformity training, and they're wearing orange shirts. And now they're going to stand up at their Christmas concert, and instead of dressing up like Christmas trees and reindeer and snowflakes and singing some songs, they are going to be holding stolen land signs. Like, hello, like everything is a frog in the boiling pot, right? So if this one thing at the beginning doesn't feel good, maybe we do need to think about it. Maybe we do need to question it and dig into it.
Yeah, that's a little weird to like. This was a Christmas concert these kids were at.
Well, I don't know if you're allowed to call them Christmas concerts anymore.
Oh, okay.
Maybe it was
what? Yeah, you know what?
Kwanzaa.
I kind of like that though. I kind of like that. I like calling it a holiday concert. What? I dig that. I dig that. But okay, yeah, that is weird. You know what? You know what's on the front of my mind? How did this get started? Like,
Ooh, that's a great question.
do you know the answer?
So, I have a good hunch. I believe that this really, really took off with, of course, can you guess what event happened?
George Floyd? I don't know.
No, Canada needed our own George Floyd moment. So we were continually using the word culturally genocidal. And then which basically means assimilation, and it's a ridiculous term that I personally reject. We could get into that at some point in time. But then it became actually genocidal. Canada became actually genocidal. And they event that created this new evidence was that there was the announcement that there were 215 children's remains found at the former Kamloops Indian Residential School in their old apple orchard. And this was done with ground penetrating radar. So this announcement, then there was hundreds of churches that were burnt down or vandalized. Our flags were held at half-mast. And this is when everything really ramped up. All of a sudden, there's land acknowledgements everywhere. There's even, at the sports club I was a part of, there was a big plaque that was put up with a land acknowledgement right at the entrance. There was a huge, in the child's daycare and overlooking the swimming pool, there's these glass windows, and they put facing outward, "Every child matters," right? They use same like Black Lives Matter. They use these sayings like, I love puppies, like puppies are great, don't abuse puppies. They use these sayings so that you can't argue with it. So this all started to happen across Canada. And so where the land acknowledgements really sort of took off from that moment was this claim of 215. And it's claimed, or it's alleged that it was possibly murder, guns and priests murdering children, and that there may have been children as young as 6 years old digging shallow graves in the middle of the night, secretly clandestine burials. So
Okay. That is really like I have no idea if that's true. I don't know anything about Canada. I've not looked into that. No idea. Absolutely no idea. With that being
it's
said,
not.
even if we were to assume that it was true, just assume that it was true, the reaction seems unusual to me. Like I don't understand what that would necessarily have to do with the land acknowledgement. Like
Right.
if
Well,
that were to
Canada went
happen,
into mass.
if that
We
were to
went into
happen,
mass hysteria.
very sad, very like if it were true, very sad, terrible thing. Um, let's not do that ever again, right? Obviously, if that happened, if it didn't happen, let's still not do it. Um, but it's like I don't see the connection there. Like, is there really a connection, or is that just a really weird strategy people have concocted?
Well, if you stole the land through genocide, and that's what you believe, why would you not want to? That's such a horrible thing. Why would you not want to talk about it before every single event and scream it from the rooftops if it's true? And you subscribe to that completely.
I mean, we're not doing it. I mean, I'm saying we, but I'm not Canadian. But like, it's not happening anymore, right? Like, nobody
Well,
is.
they argue that it is still happening in different ways.
How?
So they have their missing and murdered Indigenous women. So they put up all these red dresses. They say that this is a continuation of the genocide. They have other claims like the Child Protective Services having to take statistically more Indigenous children into custody is continuation of the genocide. The fact that the land is not being returned, the whole reconciliation, all these sorts of things, that's a continuation of the genocide. Genocide is always kind of like this process that's continually happening. And so
Okay.
by saying the land acknowledgements, you're acting as an oppositional force to the continued genocide by
Hmm.
acknowledging that they are the owners of the land.
I kind of see where it comes in. I think that's a really bad strategy. Like, let's assume all that was true. Like, kidnapping, killings happening. Not saying it is true, but let's just assume. Let's go into their mindset that is happening for them. They think it's happening anyway. Maybe it is. Who knows? But like, if that was happening, why not work together to fix the problem? Like that seems
Why
more.
would you work together with your oppressors and the people that genocided you?
Well, I mean, they must know that it's not every single white Canadian. Like, there's no. They don't believe that. There's
In
no way they
critical
believe
race
that.
theory, isn't every single white person inherently racist? Like it's built in. We're born, we're steeped in it. Is that not the belief
It could be.
that can be taught?
I don't think the land acknowledgements is solving that. If that were true.
So right, so like the way forward would be to look at the truth through evidence and then to try and promote full integration. So currently on reserves, Indigenous people can't own their own land, right? So making everybody just a full equal member of society. Right now we have this pluralism going on, and it's basically an apartheid system with these reservations and the rest of society. And the neo-tribal elites get billions of dollars taken from the Canadian people, but it doesn't seem to actually be helping the people who really need help, the marginalized Indigenous people on these reserves. They seem to still have all sorts of horrible problems. So where's all the money going? And then not just the neo-tribal elites, but their consultant and lawyer caste, which are often not Aboriginal people. So there's all this money, no one's being helped, and they're marginalized on reserves with lower educational standards, horrible living conditions, often not having clean water, 40% fetal alcohol syndrome rates, possibly. Missing and murdered Indigenous women, which seems to be happening at very high rates with Indigenous men. All sorts of problems, horrible problems. Okay? So we need to, work, we need to actually solve these problems. And saying a land acknowledgement also may be just like an off steam valve where a bunch of people are like, it's like the Ralph, he's like, I'm helping.
Yeah.
And they think they've kind of absolved themselves of actually solving this problem when there's people suffering right now. There's little children suffering right now in horrible conditions.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like those issues are. I would assume they would say that those are secondary issues, or at least seems like at least a different issue. And yes, I absolutely do think that truth, figure out what is true, yeah, that will help. That'll help a lot. Even that aside, like, even if you don't figure out what is true, like if you think that genocide is currently occurring, like, assume that's happening. They're still not picking the best strategy to fix that. They're picking like it's just weird. It's a weird
Who's
strategy.
they?
It's not uh whoever is in support of land acknowledgements. Like if current genocide is what they want to solve, like you're not going to solve it that way. You're not going to solve it in a million years. That's not helpful. Weird.
It is super weird. Yeah. So it makes them feel like they're helping, and then they don't actually have to do anything. I don't know any analogy to use for that, but it's not helpful, and I think it could actually be damaging and detrimental and cause more division.
Like,
hold on, just give me 1 second. I just have to run to the washroom quickly.
sure.
Hi, sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. So I was thinking, like, I don't know if there was a genocide occurring. I don't know what the strategy would be to stop that. Honestly, like, I have no idea if that was occurring. But if it was, and I had to pick a strategy, and I could only like use my free speech, I don't think it would be the land acknowledgement strategy. I think it might just be like a sign, and I would write like "Stop the genocide." Like, wouldn't that be more effective? Am I missing something? Am I like totally off base here?
Well, the thing is that to solve the problem has to exist.
Well, yeah, yes, I
So,
agree.
so yeah, so you'd have to look at what is actually, if let's say a lot of deaths or suffering is being caused by fetal alcohol syndrome, then we should be looking at building recovery centers that can facilitate mothers and children and babies only, pregnant women, and have them set up so that they can stay sober, have proper nutrition, have engagement, arts and crafts, talk circles, counseling, their cultural practices if they want to have their cultural practices, build these establishments on reserves, beautiful facilities, have recreation, movie theater, throw a movie theater, you know what I mean? Like make these beautiful places where they can live with dignity. And because if you are suffering in horrible conditions, you're going to probably want to escape with alcohol. And you're going to need a community to help you get out of addiction because no one can get out of addiction themselves alone. It has to be their decision, but you need that help, you need that support. Right? So if there's billions of dollars, facilities should be being built to actually help people, right? And then if you have, children being raised where they're in a healthy environment and their mother's sober, and those sorts of things, that would be a good way to promote a healthy future, a good future, right? With the best start. So actually looking at real tangible problems, and then also facilitating, instead of just saying, okay, well, we're taking children away through through child services, let's say. And they want to say that removing children from one group forcibly to another is technically part of the definition of genocide. And that's their argument for why this is a continuation of the genocide. Okay, if let's say that's true, and I believe that I would prefer to put programs in place to try and facilitate mothers and babies being together and children as much as possible, while prioritizing the safety and well-being of the child, right?
Yeah.
So if you could create more facilities, more support networks where their women and their children are housed and fed and given the counseling and the parent lessons. If she has postpartum depression, I volunteered one time as a baby cuddler, so the mothers could get a break, right? The mothers, and they can
Yeah.
go in
Yeah.
and chat with each other in a
That's important.
group session. Yeah, so giving the mothers a break, and having baby cuddlers there and stuff like that. So what supports do we need to put in place to stop the children being taken away? There may still be some
Yeah.
cases where you actually have to, but are we doing everything we can to prevent that? Well, let's look at the actual problems and let's come up with some creative solutions and be solution oriented.
I like it. All right, we've been talking for about an hour. Um, I think I've kind of dug as deep as I want to go. Um, any questions for me? Anything at all?
Do you know why it's most likely that the 215 claim at Kamloops is probably false?
Uh, well, my limited understanding of it is that they had some sort of radar in it. Like you can't. My understanding is that the radar goes down, bounces off something down there, and then bounces back up. So there's something in the ground. Uh, is that conclusive enough to say that it's X amount of however many bodies? I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily conclusive. I think you would want to do a little bit of digging and figure out for sure. Is that the reason?
Yeah, so if you knew that there were 20 test pits dug and that the number was lowered from 215 down to 200 because those archaeological test pits were just the lady who did the GPR, Sarah Bollier, didn't look into the history of the area and didn't realize there had already been 20 test pits until after the fact when she made the 215 announcement, and that those 20 test pits didn't have any human remains, right? There's also the fact that if you overlap where she got most of the hits with a map of the area, it's over an old septic field. So GPR surveying has what's called non-uniqueness in the data, and you can get the same parabola sort of data image for different things. And so the only way to be conclusive is to excavate.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's been no parent historically who claimed that their child was missing. If there were deaths that occurred from disease or accidents or other things, there were death certificates. And there's other graveyards at in other areas that have lost their markers over time because they had wooden markers. So finding remains in a graveyard is not surprising, but at the Kamloops case specifically, there is already a graveyard in another area, and this was an old apple orchard that had also had fill put in the area. There could be roots, rocks, all sorts of things, and there was also a swimming pool in the area at one point in time as well. So a lot of stuff has happened there. So to simply go like scan over it based on some ghost stories and say that, yeah, we've determined that there's been a genocide here, or, there's 215 child remains in the ground without any excavations is absurd.
Out of curiosity, what year is it claimed that these deaths occurred? If it's known, if it's speculated.
And I've never ever heard a date stated ever.
It's interesting. I suppose it would be
Yeah.
difficult without excavating to figure that out. Huh. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Piers.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. Thanks, Kathy. This was fun. And I did break the mold quite a bit there towards the end. I started off with kind of very strict street epistemology, and then it just kind of tapered off. But I think it made for a better conversation that way, anyway.
Yeah, I had lots of fun.
Cool. All right. That's all I got. So I guess take
Perfect.
care.